Hey there, Suzi here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to share this special message with you. Now, my co-host Michelle and I love masterminds. Not only do we belong to masterminds, but we also host a mastermind. We started it almost 8 years ago, and it is the premier mastermind for women business owners who want to grow their business with a specific focus on marketing. Now, this group is usually completely booked out, and very occasionally we open the doors and invite a handful of women in. So if you're growing your business, but you're struggling with feeling overwhelmed, or like you constantly have a split focus when it comes to your marketing, this could be exactly what you're looking for. We have an amazing time together, and the women in the group are extraordinary. They're great cheerleaders, supporters, advisors, and colleagues for you. And they're also seeing extraordinary results. We see people cracking the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million mark, launching new e-commerce sites that go from $0 to $10,000 a month in sales. They're doubling their conversion rates, they're growing memberships, they're selling courses, they're growing their personal brands, and they're getting all kinds of media exposure and speaking opportunities and so much more. You can learn more about the mastermind and join the waitlist over at herbusinessmastermind.com. We're going to open the doors soon, so you definitely want to be on the list to get an invitation. So head on over to herbusinessmastermind.com. Hey there, Suzi here. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to let you know that we're gearing up for our Get New Clients Coaching Week. So if you've ever struggled to explain what you do or to attract new clients, know that I have a process that works, and it doesn't require any cold calling, being on all the social media channels, or even having an email list. And if you don't get a new client by the end of the week with this plan, I will refund your money. That's how much I believe in it. You can learn more over at hercoachingweek.com. Hi, you're listening to the Content Sales Podcast, a show all about how to create content to attract, convert, and keep your ideal clients. Welcome to episode 193. I'm Suzi Daphnis, and here with me is my co-host, Michelle Falzon. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hiya, Suzi. I'm doing really well. I'm really looking forward to today's show, as I always am. But we're talking about something today that both you and I have leveraged in several different ways to create some awesome results. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. I'm excited about this one too. That's something that Michelle referred to is Facebook groups. And we've covered this topic before in a few different episodes that we will link to in our show notes. And I'll rattle some of these off. One was episode 77, which was the secrets to creating engaged online communities. And we had a wonderful special guest in Susan Garrett. Episode 152, which is how to get people from your free Facebook group to your paid offer. Episode 186, how to get more sales from your existing social media followers. And today we are looking more at the essential systems and processes that you want to think about having in place to ensure that you have a successful Facebook group.
Right, because you might have many of the ingredients in place for a successful Facebook group. Some of the things we've talked about in those other episodes, perhaps you've got a great idea, an engaged crowd. You perhaps have done a big launch, or you've got a steady traffic stream of people building up the number of people joining your group, but it can still fall flat if you don't have some fundamental systems in place at really quite specific points in the life cycle of your Facebook group. From the systems you have in place during that prep and strategy phase, like before you even know for sure you need a Facebook group, what are some of the processes you have in place to check that it's really the right thing? And, you're evaluating whether it makes sense, through to the pre-launch phase where you set your group up and ensuring you have that full checklist of items ready before launch. Then there's your processes once your Facebook group is live, and they relate to how someone can join your group, what initial steps you might need to put in place, and then the ongoing management processes and systems that you'll need in place for continually managing a successful group. And then finally, what processes do you need in place should you be closing or archiving your group?
Now, everything we say here can probably apply also if you are on LinkedIn and you use LinkedIn groups, but a lot of the terminology we'll be using here today is specific to Facebook groups. So we're going to be giving you some of our top tips for each of those stages in your Facebook group lifecycle: the prep or strategy phase, the pre-launch phase, the live phase, so when the group is actually active, plus the closing or archiving phase. And we'll explain when that might be relevant as well. We're also going to give you some key distinctions between the processes that you might want to have in place when your group is a free group that anyone can join, or people particular groups that people can join, but it's a group for people who are taking part in free activities that you have, or whether your group is a perk that someone only gets when they've purchased a specific product or service or program from you. And we'll talk more about that. And we're going to be starting with the free group systems and processes, and then rounding out the episode with any variations that you might need to think about if your group is part of a paid product, program, course, those sorts of things.
And one big thing we wanted to point out here is that while we're using these terms, paid and free, just a little kind of explanation of what we mean by that, because you cannot ask people to pay to join a Facebook group. That's actually contravening Meta's terms and conditions. So always ensure that the group is a perk of a paid program versus something people pay you for directly. So if somebody's joined your coaching program, one of the perks might be that they get exclusive access to your coaching program only Facebook group. Or if you have delivered a service or they've bought a product from you, let's say they bought an alarm system from you, perhaps they can then get access to your alarm system buyers group. So that's kind of what we mean by paid versus free. If somebody's paid you for a service or a product or a program, then you might give them a perk. Access to a Facebook group is a perk. If otherwise it's maybe something free that you're doing, then that's where we're applying the free terminology. So that's a free group, one that you might put together for a host of reasons that anyone can join. For example, it could be you teach people to crochet, and so you create a free group open to anyone who's interested in crocheting. But you might have a paid program, if you were in that same crocheting niche, is one that you might put together, like maybe you've got a crochet with style online course or something like that. Then that paid group would be a perk of people who joined the Crochet with Style program. So they'd get exclusive access to the Crochet with Style student Facebook group, where they can meet other students in the program, where you might share additional resources and keep in touch with your students. So there's just that sort of explanation of what we mean when we're saying the difference between a free and paid group. You cannot actually get somebody to pay to join a Facebook group.
I love that. Yeah, and this distinction between the free and the paid groups is exactly what we do with Her Business. So we have the free Her Business community for women business owners, and any woman business owner can request to join that community. And this is how we begin in many cases to connect with our ideal customers. So this group is, you don't have to have purchased anything to request access to the group. And in that group, we share what's happening in our network, in our courses. We provide some resources, mostly lead magnets that require an opt-in or promotion. And it's a way for us to keep people warm, if you like, until we next open up the Her Business Network. Now, we stream interviews with existing clients. I did that just this morning. We also offer some of our free networking events and anything that's designed to get people who are not yet members to see what great work we do. We also share our customer wins and stories. And you can learn more about these strategies from moving people from a free group to paid products and services, just like we're doing deliberately with this free community, moving them to membership, moving them to our courses. You can learn more about that process in episode 152 of the Content Source podcast. It's a whole episode dedicated to this idea of leveraging people in a free group to buy from you. We'll put that link in our show notes. Then to contrast that, we have a group which is the Her Business Network members Facebook group. Now, that is only for women who are paid members of the Her Business Network. And we share a different level, a deeper level of resources and information inside of that group. For example, one, I am far more involved and engaged in offering coaching inside of that group. Every week we have accountability threads so that members can feel supported as they move towards their goals. We have different challenges and content around our monthly focus areas. So every single month inside the Her Business Network, we focus in on a different area of business. And so last month, it was all about sales and marketing. This month, it is all about grit and mindset. And each month inside the Facebook group for our members, we give away hundreds of dollars in resources, and we set up tasks and opportunities for members to participate. We also have a very conscious attention in that group on helping members to connect and collaborate with each other and to engage and to get the support that's available to them because they are part of the paid Her Business network. Now, we've also created Facebook groups for other specific paid programs, such as our annual retreat that we hold in Hawaii. That is the Reach Retreat, which is a retreat that we run in Hawaii, as I just said, or our Marketing Success Mastermind program, which is the 12-month program that Michelle and I run. This is a program that we've mentioned here on the show many times, and it's where we give the most access to us, to me and Michelle, to our customers. And we spend a lot of our time supporting those masterminders in so many ways, extensive ways, because they are paying for a more comprehensive service. Now, the Facebook group is just one of the benefits of the mastermind, because when you join the mastermind, you get 4 two-day events a year. You get 2 one-on-one strategy sessions. You get monthly Q&A calls. You get a library of presentations from incredible marketers from around the world. You get weekly check-ins and so much more. But the Facebook group is a priceless component because it's where you can get access to me and Michelle 24/7 to ask whatever questions you have, whether that's posting your emails or posting your landing page or asking about your membership or your next challenge or checking in or I'm trying to think, or collaborating with other members of the mastermind. So it's a really powerful component of a much larger, longer-term commitment that is a paid commitment.
I love those examples you've just shared, Suzi, and I think it's really helping to, put some flesh on the bones of this idea that we've been talking about, this difference between free and paid groups. And if you're listening right now, you might be thinking, yeah, I've got some of those groups, or I've been thinking about starting one of those groups. And you may find you need one or both of these types of groups, depending on your specific strategy. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you'll know that's what we're big on, really beginning with that question, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? So one big piece of advice I think both Suzi and I would give you is to know exactly why you're creating your group, whether it's paid or free, and exactly what the job is of that group. Because just starting a group for no apparent reason is kind of opening the door on a lot of work you may not need to do. And so really thinking about what is the job, what is the purpose of this group. For example, you might be planning out your annual calendar, and we've got some upcoming episodes on that. You might be planning out your annual marketing calendar and you have a big launch that you're going to do, say in the middle of the year. Then you might decide, you know what, I'm going to do as part of my lead up to that launch, I'm going to do a free challenge, or I'm going to open up a free group so that people can come into my free workshop. Whatever your strategy is that is about getting as many people as possible paying attention to you so that you can make your offer for whatever it is you're launching. A free group may be a part of that strategy. It's a great way to get a lot of momentum and focus, and many of my clients do that. We've done that on various campaigns. Suzi, I know you do that on many of your campaigns. And then in that group, you move those people over to the paid program, which very often will include a paid group when they buy. So the free group might be there just specifically to get people through the challenge or the workshop or whatever it is, or you might already have an existing free community like Suzi's Her Business community where you're going to really amp up activity in that group in that period of time. It gives you an excellent platform to convert more free members to paid buyers. But don't start a group just because you think you need one. There is a lot of maintenance to get a free group going and then thriving, and also for groups as part of paid programs as well. And many die on the vine. I've seen this many times with people because the group owner lost interest, or they lost energy for it because it wasn't fulfilling any of their strategic objectives, or they didn't manage it in a way that kept people engaged. And all of that you can underpin with those systems and processes.
Thanks, Michelle. And so that's a great lead into the first phase in the systems and processes that we want to outline to you today, which are essential systems for successful Facebook groups. And the first is this preparation or strategy phase. So you really want to think about why a group, because as Michelle mentioned, it's going to require resources, it's going to require time and energy, both yours and anyone else on the team that's going to be taking care of the group, because this is it's kind of a living organism, and it'll only be as successful as the strategy behind it and having a clear purpose. And so really thinking about, why do you want a group? Being clear about its intention. What is the intention of the group? What is it designed to do? I mentioned earlier, we have a group that's specifically designed to be a place where women can get to know, like, and trust us, because at some point we're hoping they're going to be ready for our paid programs. You want to have, if you're growing a free group because it's going to lead into other things, then what are your goals for the group? How many new members do you want each month? That's going to determine how you're going to market the group, where you're going to market the group. Are you going to do paid advertising for the group? Are you going to rely on organic traffic? How are you going to get people into that group? How much time do you want to spend in that group? Or do you want your team spending in that group? What is it that you want people to do next when they join that group? Because growing a group just for the sake of having a group, we really, we always think very strategically here on the show, in our side of our mastermind, because I don't know any business owner who's got time just to be doing stuff without a clear intention. So what do you want people to do next when they join the group? And starting with that end in mind is important, even at the outset. And if you've got a group that's been going for a while and you're like, I don't know if I love this group, I don't know if I should keep it, then what is its clear intention? What is the end that you have in mind for those people? For example, with Her Business Free Community for Women Business Owners, we are very clear on the purpose of that group. And as I said, it's for us for people to get to know, like, and trust us, me, and to interact with some of our activity. So whether it's one of our challenges, our Her Business Live event, a free lead magnet, a webinar, whether we ultimately want them to become a network member, that is ultimately what the group was designed to do. It was designed to be a place for people to be there, because we only open up membership twice a year, sometimes 3 times. This was a great place for people to get some support and get to know us. And so then when we open up our membership, there's a ready audience for that. And we found time and time again, when we open up membership, that most of the women who joined have at some point been part of the free group. So I want you to hear that again, is that what you're doing in your free groups when you have a clear intention is so important. When they join our monthly membership, we give them access to what we're calling our paid group. Again, the Facebook group is only one component of what they get as a membership, but that group has very different intentions. There, it's about creating a sense of community and belonging for our members, and it's part of our retention. It's about people being more engaged with us and engaging not only with me, but with each other. It's about communication. The group gives us a great way to communicate important ideas, announcements, upcoming events, really quickly and really effectively with all of our members. It is also about expansion. We know that our members are our best customers for other offers. So if you're a Her Business Network member, you are far more likely to attend our Reach Retreat, which is happening in Hawaii in October. You can find out more at thereachretreat.com, or any of our courses, or our Marketing Success Mastermind. So if you're thinking about a group, when do you want to start the group? Is it going to be an ongoing group, or is it for a limited time frame? And we'll talk a little more about that. Is it what we call a pop-up group? Are you going to manage it yourself, or are you going to need some help? So one of the first systems and processes you need in place is some dedicated time before you even start your Facebook group to document some of the things that I've mentioned, so that you're clear about what your strategy is, because they can be a real time suck, as you'll know, Michelle. It's going to give you a sense of, do I actually want to go ahead with this or not?
Yeah, time suck. Those words and Facebook group can often go together. You're absolutely right, Suzi. And so Suzi's just given you a really good checklist of things to think about in that pre-planning, that phase of the Facebook group, which is really even before it's turned into a Facebook group, that prep and strategy phase. And so write those things down. Give yourself that time and space Suzi's talking about, and actually answer those questions. Will I be the person that manages the group? What is the purpose of the group? How many people do I want in the group? How much time will I spend looking after this group? What do I want people to do next? Like, what's the conversion activity that I want people to do as a result of joining this group? Because it's not just about having a free group. I mean, some people just want to create a free group because they're interested in a topic. That's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about groups as a really clear business strategy. Because, there's a phrase, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you will have heard, no content without conversion. And so knowing the job of every single piece of content you're going to invest your time in, and that conversion doesn't mean that every day everybody in your group becomes a member or joins your XYZ program or buys your ABC product. But it means you're very clear about what you're trying to do in that group. You're trying to let them know about your membership, share success stories of your members if your next step is a membership. Or if you have a physical product, then it's about demonstrating the physical product, sharing wins from other customers who've bought that physical product. It's about putting offers into the group when you have specials and promotions. It's about putting lead magnets into that group so that people will want to buy from you and move into a specific sales promotion funnel from you. So remember, no content without conversion. Your Facebook group is a big piece of content that can take up a lot of time ongoing, because it's not just about writing something once. That Facebook group is a hungry beast that needs to be fed over and over. So you need crystal clarity about what your return is going to be, what that conversion job is. So that's that prep and strategy phase. Let's take a look at some of the key systems and processes you want in place when you move on to the next phase in the life cycle of your Facebook group, and that is the pre-launch phase. So what we mean by this is you've decided the group is a goer. You do have a reason for the group. It strategically fits in with your plans. Now you've even decided on the date. You're going to launch it on this date. You're going to name it this. You've kind of thought about a whole bunch of things related to the group. Now, what do you need to be thinking about now in that lead up to the opening of the group? And one of the first things is team. Who will be on the team that helps you manage the group? And what will their role be? And at first you might say, well, hey, I'm the entire team for the group, and that's fine. But if you're looking at your goal numbers and you're thinking, wow, I'm expecting to get hundreds of people in here, you may be needing some help. So what will their role be? There's a couple of roles that you can have in a group. And first, I'm just going to talk about conceptual roles, and then we'll talk a little bit about the actual access levels or roles that Facebook sees that are in a group. But just in terms of the kinds of roles you might give to people who are supporting you in your Facebook group, you could have somebody that's called the community manager. And I know for a lot of the groups that I work with that are big groups, they have a community manager. A lot of my clients actually hire someone with that role, either full-time or part-time, who is designated with that role, and they are the person that sort of oversees the group in terms of the amount of engagement that's happening in the group. If it's staying on track, maybe there's some posts that might be a little bit iffy that you might want to get rid of and things like that. Engaging with the audience, all of that kind of stuff is the role of the community manager, thinking about, upcoming ideas and ways to keep people engaged, and managing the team if there is an additional team involved. So that's one role, community manager. Another role could be like somebody who is in the group as like an advisor or a subject matter expert. And so again, if you have a bigger community, you might, and perhaps you're running a course, you might designate even some of your students to be like course advisors or subject matter experts who are supporting you in the group. And this is a fantastic strategy if you don't necessarily have a big team. You can ask a handful of your best students from a previous course or a previous program or previous consulting or coaching clients to come in and actually be those experts in your group. And as an aside, there is a feature now in Facebook that allows administrators of Facebook to designate which members of the group are highly knowledgeable about the group's topic. They get called a group expert. And so beyond those kind of bragging rights, group experts actually have a badge next to their name so that status is very clear to other people in the group. So you could be actually hand choosing a few people to be your group experts inside the community. There's also the moderator role, and that's somebody who's really looking at, moderating the posts and things like that. one suggestion that I like to suggest to my clients is that they use a hashtag to denote their role. So when the community manager is posting, she says or he says, hey, great post, Suzi, fantastic idea to do XYZ, and then hashtag community manager. So people know that that person is the community manager. So there's a few ideas about team, and I totally get it. Your team at first might just be you, but thinking about that in that pre-launch phase is really important, because as you think about all the roles, you start to think, gosh, I am going to need to be present. If it's just me, I'm going to need to be present in this group for all of these kinds of roles in the group. And another big thing to think about with team is, will they use their own personal Facebook profile, or will they use a business profile? So do you want them posting in there as themselves, or do you want them posting as, something else that's related more to your business? And Suzi, I know you've got experience with both of these things.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about that. And I also want to just make a recommendation, because we saw this happen inside of the mastermind. One of our masterminders, Yvonne from the Wonderful Women's Fitness Adventures, she was running a challenge and she was expecting X number of people. And I think she got like 5 times as many people. So she had thousands of people in this group. And while originally she thought she would manage the group on her own, with our encouragement, she brought on a team of people. And so I want to encourage you, when things do go well, then you really need to make a great impression, make sure everyone's taken care of, reach out to friends, family, teenagers, whomever, to help you with those roles, to come in under one of the guises that Michelle said, one of the different roles, and really support you with your group. Now, I want to talk about this idea of using a personal profile or a business profile. And this is a little tricky to do in this audio sort of podcast format, but I'm going to do the best I can with it. One of the things that we like to do inside of Her Business is that people seldom post under their own names, people on my team. And the reason is that we've got a great team, as Michelle knows. People have been with us for years and years and years. So it's not that. It's really about the customers knowing who they're communicating with. Now, Facebook has some limitations where some things you're required to post as an individual, but otherwise you can post as a page. And I'll say that again. You can set up a page for your business or multiple pages, and you can post as that page. So let me give you an example. So we have a page called Her Business, and inside of our groups, anyone that we assign the privilege to can post as Her Business, and it shows up as Her Business page posting. So when we are posting a new piece of content, an announcement, some information, a new guide, we will post under the banner of Her Business page. Now that capability might be assigned to multiple team members. So what that means is that anyone who has that privilege can post as Her Business. So if someone's not on that day or it's a little late in the day, the post can still happen and it's all consistent. We have a second page that we use quite often, which is called Her Business Team. And again, the privilege of posting as Her Business Team is assigned to a number of our team members. So when we are posting a fresh piece of content, we post as Her Business. But anytime we are responding to a client, whether it's to give them a thumbs up, whether it's to give them a response, whether it's to give them a link, we do it as Her Business Team. So we use the @Her Business Team login as our customer service persona. So that means all our posts are consistent. So either Her Business is posting or @Her Business Team is responding. Now, where that is different is when I'm posting. When I'm posting as me, whether I'm commenting, whether I'm giving someone feedback, whether I'm, adding a new piece of content, I post as myself. But the team has those two options to post as. Hopefully that makes good sense. But otherwise, just let us know. You can ask us questions about anything we cover here on the show over on the Content Cells Facebook page, which you'll find by searching for Content Cells.
I think it makes perfect sense. And, like you said, it's not necessarily, and in some businesses, it might be that they have high staff turnover. And so, it is a really good reason to have a consistent persona or brand that's posting. But in your case, that's not the reason, but still that consistency, that universality, like when you see it's Her Business Team posting, then people know it's somebody from the organization that owns the group that's posting, and those posts carry more weight. They feel like people are being seen by the business. And all of that is really important, especially when you first join a group and you don't know who, XYZ person is and what their role is in the organization. So I think that's really great advice. And as you're thinking about your systems and processes, when you're in that pre-launch phase, remember that's where we're up to in the process right now, in the life cycle of your Facebook group, and we're thinking about our team. In addition to thinking who is on the team and what their roles will be and whether they're going to use their own personal Facebook profile or a business profile, you also need to really think about and have this in your checklist of things. How much access will they get? So there are really two key levels of access you can give someone in terms of their power inside the group as an administrator or as a moderator. So they're the two sort of levels: admin or administrator and moderator. Now, an administrator is someone who owns the Facebook group, typically, and they can also then assign other administrators of the group, or they can assign other moderators, of course. So you can have more than one administrator. But that admin role is super powerful, and you want to be very, very conscious and have a really clear system and process for who becomes an admin, because they can literally kick other admins out. So if you make somebody an admin, they can kick other admins out. And so you really want to make sure that you're very clear about who is permitted to have that administrator role. And they really have all the powers. They can post, they can remove posts, they can add other admins, they can, delete things, they can do all the things. It's like the golden key to the Facebook group. The moderator role is someone who doesn't have all the control that an admin does, but they can do a lot of things. And so if you've got somebody on your team that you want to have the ability to create posts and approve member requests and approve and decline posts and create guides and all those kinds of things, then you might want to give them the moderator level of access. So mostly as the business owner, as the Facebook group owner, you can get all the support you need from the team members that you bring in to support you by making someone a moderator. And I suggest that's your first port of call rather than going straight to letting, multiple people be an admin. And even some people who come into your group as perhaps students that you entrust with kind of this extra level of, group expert, they don't even need to be a moderator. They just need to, use their existing group membership privileges of being able to comment and like and interact with posts. So it's only, those people that you really need to be doing some of that more executive level functioning that you need to even consider making a moderator.
Yeah, very, very good. And so, like Michelle suggested, we'll give the admin role to our core team members. But if we have an intern working with us or someone working with us temporarily, we might just give them that moderator role. Now, on our team, we have two customer service people, one person who really holds the role for customer service and someone who covers that role a couple of days a week. So that's who I think they all have admin, actually. Our event coordinator, who also has admin access. Then there's me. But then there might be other groups where we bring other people into that. So our Marketing Success Mastermind group, Michelle, of course, is an admin and posts in that group as well. There's another group that my partner PJ has active participation in, and so he'll have a higher level than just a normal delegate status. And so when you do start to assign, and like Michelle said, you want to be very careful, especially if someone doesn't need the admin role. And again, Facebook only allows you to do certain things in a group at certain levels. And so for that reason, we might have upgraded someone beyond the level we thought we'd need to because they were required to do a task that required that. You also need a system for what happens when someone leaves your organization or your Facebook group team, because you might have collaborators in the group who are not team members. Like you might bring people on for a particular project you're working on, but they don't need to be part of that group the whole time. So our process, and this only really occurs when someone leaves the organization, is two things, is to remove their access to the group. Okay. And that is especially important if it is one of the groups that has been set up for one of our paid services. But if they're a part of our free community, for instance, we may just downgrade their status and allow them to remain in the group. But if they're no longer working here, then they don't get access to things. And this is why it's really important. One of the things that I hold pretty close to me is that when a new group is formed, I'm usually the one that does that. Now, do I need to be doing that? Probably not, because like I said, we've got an excellent team. But you do just want to be careful, because I know a number of people who have been locked out of their own groups because someone's left or someone's gone dark and they can't get a hold of them. And if your groups are as important to you as ours are to me, then you want to make sure that you have a system for handing over the group access. So team is just one of the part of this phase that you want to systemize. We want to talk about a couple of other things to do in this pre-launch checklist that you'll want to have a system and a process for. One thing is, and I love this is a little bit of marketing activity, that's why I love it, and that is the banner on your group. So this is a precious piece of real estate in your group. And that is, the banner that sits right at the top. First, it's open and visible to anyone to whom the group is visible, whether they're a member or not. So it's a little bit of marketing real estate for you. And while you might have a generic banner that might have the name of the group or a photo of you or some photo representative of the group, you can also use it a little bit like a billboard by changing it out for different promotions. So, for example, we will have just recently taken down our Her Business Live banner inside of our members group because we've been promoting that to our members and our non-members. And we're soon going to be replacing that with whatever our next promotion is. So in our free group, for example, we would currently be promoting our Get New Clients Coaching Week, which we run twice a year. And then we take it down and we'll be promoting something else. But for our members, we might be reminding them that our Reach Retreat in Hawaii is coming up in October. So during a promotional period, say, for example, you have a pop-up group and it's for your online challenge. We might change that banner 2 or 3 times because every time you change the banner, it notifies the members that a change has been made. And so you'll pop up into people's feeds and they're more likely to see your update than not. So we might start a promotion with a generic banner. We might then say, 2 days to go. This is whatever the next thing we want them to do. And we use it, like I said, like a bit of a billboard. The other thing that we like to do pre-launch is have a process for the guides that we're going to use. So depending on what type of Facebook group you determine with Facebook you want to have, you can set up guides. Now, these are little ways to organize your content. And so when we start a new group, we usually set up a guide that is a startup guide, which says start here. And in that, we might have some key information. So we might, for example, have a schedule, or we might have a introduce yourself section, or we might have a list of all the key things they need to do to prepare for that program. So, for example, if we have a pop-up group for a course like the Mastermind Experience that Michelle and I just finished up, we built the guides at the beginning. We had our startup guides, and then we added guides as we went along. So as we did lesson 1, we added the handouts and the implementation tasks for that guide. As we did lesson 2, we did the same thing. As we did lesson 3, we added the guide for lesson 3. Then at the end of the program, when we were finally open to taking applications for the mastermind, we added a guide that was all about our 12-month mastermind program. So we built it as we went along. But when people first went in that pre-launch phase, we already had some goodies for them set up in a guide, categorized, organized, and then we directed them to that with a post, with an email, because it was core information in a place where they could find it and then refer back to it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of guides. And, as you're listening, we're hoping that you are kind of adding some of these things to your checklist, your process for thinking about what do I need to have in my group that might be guides related before I launch, so that when I open the doors, what people are going to need at that launch stage is really present for them. And so Suzi's just given you some great examples, and I just want to reiterate those points because, think about if you're doing a course or you're doing a program that's over a period of time, or you're wanting to take people on a particular journey in your group, or you wanted to encourage a certain level of participation or engagement or whatever the goal of that group is, think about my guides. What can I put in those early guides, those starting guides that are going to really give people what they need and are going to get the behaviors happening right from the start that you want to have happening. So, for example, I've just finished a big project with a client that was a 6-week course, lots and lots of students involved. And our starter guides were quite similar in there was like a meet the team guide. So we wanted them to know who was who in the zoo. So we had a guide that was just a little video from each member of the team. So the community manager, the course advisors, everybody had their video there. We had another guide which was all about the course schedule. So it had a visual of the entire 6 weeks of the program. It had information on each of the things that were happening and when they were happening. And then we had another guide which was about important links and resources. So that was where they could go to get access to the online portion of the training and how often they'd get access to the recordings and all those kinds of things. So it really set the tone. And when people joined the program, we were able to say, go ahead and join the group. And the very first thing you want to do is go up to the guides section and look at these 3 guides. And as it says, it's a great way to guide people through your Facebook group, especially at that onboarding when you first launch kind of stage. And as you're thinking about systems and procedures here, what we did was, just like you said, Suzi, every time there was, each week went by and a new piece of content got added, a new lesson got added, we would add a new guide for that week's content with links back to the relevant places that they needed to go to access that information. But we had an SOP, a standard operating procedure, for exactly who did that. So as soon as the replay became available, it triggered a certain person on the team to undertake 4 or 5 very specific tasks, a process, which involved not only making sure that replay made it into the online learning area, but also that it was added as a guide in the Facebook group. So think about how can you piggyback some of these Facebook group processes onto the back of processes you might already have in place. So whether it's a course like the example I've just given, or part of your coaching program, or if you're running a challenge and you're running a group that, every day in the challenge is something different. Think about that SOP, that standard operating procedure that's going to update those guides. What triggers it? Who does it? All of those sorts of things are important things to consider. And it's great to have that figured out in the pre-launch phase so you're not scrambling then once the program is live. And other things to have a plan for in your group pre-launch is, will you be using hashtags and how will you be using hashtags? And hashtags is something really powerful in a group I love to sort of establish. It's a way for people to kind of categorize their posts. And it's a way for you to build focus around certain things that you might want your group to be focused around. So think about what those hashtags are, and you can create, information on what those hashtags are and have them available to people on your site. The other thing you want to think about is the rules of the group and making sure that they are absolutely published and that you've reviewed them and that you're aligned with them and that your team is aligned with them and understands them before you launch. And in the episode with Susan Garrett that we quoted a little earlier, she has some great tips on how to set up those rules so they really encourage the kind of community behavior that you're looking to establish. And that's episode 77, Secrets to Creating Engaged Online Communities with Susan Garrett. So there are a couple of other things you might just want to be adding to your processes as you're evaluating that pre-launch phase of your group.
Very good. So you've got the group, you've got the end in mind, you're figuring out your startup content, some of the guides you might be doing, what you're doing with your banner, what hashtags you're going to use, what the rules are. Now, what are you going to say and when are you going to say it? So having a posting schedule in mind before you get started, whether it's for a pop-up group or whether it's for a permanent group, is really important. So what are you going to post and when? And again, you want to think about this ahead of time, because the last thing you want is every day, week, trying to figure out what it is that you're going to say. And it's less around quantity of posts and content and more about being strategic. knowing, or this is what I'm posting for engagement. This is what I'm posting because it's calls to action. This is what I'm posting because it's announcements and information people need to know. Or here's what I'm going to be posting because it's going to be moving people towards the next step that I want them to take. So what you might set up ahead of time are your starter posts. So this can be an introduce yourself post, if that's something that's important for your community. And certainly anytime we do either an online challenge, we open up our membership, we'll definitely have an introduce yourself post that we have pre-scheduled. We also then have calendars and schedules, group guidelines. When you're going to have ongoing posts and you're doing a launch, and just say you're doing a 5-day challenge, just to give you an example, again, you want to think about ahead of time what needs to be posted on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And if you can pre-write the posts that you might need during a course or a program or anything like that, that's going to free up your time to do other things. So as I said, this can range from posts to announce the lessons that are coming up, or follow-up posts, like Michelle said, after something happens, for instance, after a module of the training is completed or has gone live. But it's also that if whatever you're using the group for is designed to help people buy something else from you, then you want to, again, think about ahead of time, before you even launch, when are things going to happen and what is it that's going to happen? Is it a GIF? Is it a video? Is it a Facebook Live? Is it an event? Is it the announcement of bonuses? Is it bonuses going away? So we've given you a ton of things here. The good thing is you can press that rewind button and come on back and make some notes. But we're really setting you up with the essential systems and the processes for successful Facebook groups. And this is based on having run many, many groups, both Michelle and I, over many, many years. And you think, and this might have you saying, sheesh, I've got to do all that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be successful. So that is all about the pre-launch phase. So now we want to turn our attention to some of the systems and processes that you want to focus on once your group is live and running. Now, one of the wonderful things that Facebook does is gives you the option to ask questions when people join your group. And so if you are running any group, firstly, you want to make sure that it's set to being a private group, if it is only for a select group of people, or if you want the opportunity to ask questions. So asking questions is a great opportunity to get from the people joining your group, not only to verify that they are the right people joining the right groups, but also to get some insights into your group members and to generate leads and get people on your email list. So let me explain. If you want to qualify that these people actually should be in this group, then you want to ask a question like, have you registered for the Get New Clients Coaching Week? Follow-up question. If so, what email address did you use? And this is the sort of question we ask for our Get New Clients Coaching Week, or anytime there's a private group that is for a program, because we want to make sure that, the link isn't being passed around, someone hasn't stumbled across it and is getting access. And then the team can cross-check, yep, before they let them in, yep, this person is meant to be in this group. The other thing that I like to do using this questions functionality is to gather data to better know the client. So you can ask them something that's going to allow you to speak to that challenge or problem they have, or that trait inside your group. So for example, imagine your group was for people dealing with diabetes. You might want to ask, when it comes to managing your diabetes, what is your biggest problem or frustration? Or if you had a weight loss group, when it comes to losing weight, what diets have you already tried? That's going to give you a little bit of intel into that person's particular situation, and it's going to allow you to speak to that information inside the group. So if you see a trend that everyone's doing a keto diet, then you might know, oh, okay, these people have all tried keto and it's either worked or hasn't worked. Or this is the problem these people are having with their diabetes, with their styling, with their nutrition, with their pool installation, whatever it is that you could use some extra client information. These are real people giving you real words that you can use in your marketing. So we always ask a question like that. Now, if you want to move people to your email list, which I encourage you to do, if this is a group of people who haven't already registered for something and you already have their details, you want to move them to your email list, because that is an owned piece of property. You own it. You can email them every day, week, month, whatever you want. So to do that, when you ask for access to our Her Business, our free group, we offer you a lead magnet. Now, we offer to send you a free training about your ideal client. In order to get that training, you leave your email address to get access. And 97% approximately of the people who join that group will say, yeah, I want that training. So that's another name added to our email list. Now we can send them an email, a newsletter, information about an upcoming event. We can stay in touch with them. The key with questions is to keep it to 2 or 3 of the smartest questions that you can ask, and to make it easy. You don't want to have people work too hard. So make it a multiple choice question, or make it a 1-word or 1-line answer or 1 field, right? This isn't the place to do deep research, but you can add people to an email list. You can glean a little bit about their current status or any challenges they might have. And you can, did I already say grab the email address? I think I already said that. So you want to keep it very, very succinct. Then when you have that information, here's what will happen, and this is really important. When people answer questions, when you have a look and you can see people pending, waiting to get into your group, it will display that information alongside their name. You want to cut and paste, copy and paste that information somewhere else, ideally into a spreadsheet, before you click yes to accept them into the group. Because as of the time of recording, once you click accept, that information vanishes. It's gone. You cannot retrieve it. And so part of our process and system is, for every day we clear out people who are waiting to get into our groups. Before we admit them into the group, we copy and paste the information they've left us into a spreadsheet. Then we let them into the group in that particular order so that we never lose any of the information. Michelle, is there anything you want to say before I move on?
No, I think this is great advice, and you're really pulling back the curtain on what you're doing, because you run such great groups. Like, I think anybody that's been a part of any of Suzi's groups, and if you're not, go ahead and jump into them, and we'll include some links to the groups in today's show notes. It is a really good example of how she's balancing and how her team is balancing getting people into the group, creating a great environment in the group, but also moving people forward right from the get-go.
Thanks, Michelle. I do love Facebook groups. I'm so grateful for this opportunity that Facebook gives us. And so our group is live. So we've got the questions to join. What else? Then we've got community management. And whether your group is 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, here's what you want to know, that this is a community, and that the more engaged you can get them, the more that they're going to see your posts. So the bigger and the more active the group, the more that it's going to be important to ensure that you've got eyeballs across the group managing the community. If it's a free group, you'll want to ensure that there's no renegade activity. So what I mean by that is, sometimes in free groups, it can get spammy, it can get kind of active, but not in the way you want. People start promoting their own things. And so you want to make sure that you've got a system for and a way to sort of stay on top of that and to encourage engagement. If people are posting, if people are asking questions in the area of expertise that you have, then you want to make sure that those comments are being acknowledged and people responded to. If your group is for some paid activity, people have paid you for a course or a challenge or something, and it's a group of people that have showed that level of commitment, it's going to be essential that those group members are being supported and move towards the next thing, whatever that is. If it's a sale, if it's an upgrade, if it's calling you, if it's booking a consultation, because at some point you'll want to make an offer. Remember, we're not doing these groups just for fun. We have an end in mind. And so in your community management, you want to make sure that those people in your paid groups are getting strategic support and really great value, and that you're always seeding the opportunity to work with you in a different way. You don't want to be afraid to let people know that you can work with them deeper and give them better results on the other side of whatever it is they're doing right now.
Yeah, I want to pick up on that point about community management, because, this is kind of the guts of it, right? You've got the group up and running, and for many people, that group could be running for, months or years if it's a longer term group, or it could be a short term group. But either way, this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where people have a true experience with you. And so I'd love to just talk a little bit about some of the systems and processes you might want to think about here. And I do know, especially if it's just you and it's a small group, you're figuring some of these things out on the fly, and that's okay. That's normal. We're not trying to burden you with a heap of work to do that's not necessary. But as your groups grow, as your influence and reach grows, and some people listening might already be having really big groups forming, then there are a few things that you might want to think about in terms of policies and instructions for your team that will ensure that ongoing community management. If you are the community manager, you are the person that's doing everything, those conversations often happen in our own heads, right? We just kind of make decisions on the fly. We go, right, well, is this person breaking my rules? Is this person doing a wrong thing in here? And then you can just have that conversation. But the minute you involve one more person to support you with your community management, you want to start becoming much clearer, much more documented, much more proactive in how you are having those conversations and how you are communicating the kind of behavior you want to see and encourage in the people in your group and what they're posting, and also the kind of behavior you want to see and encourage in your team in terms of what they're posting and what they're saying and how they're responding to people. So Suzi touched on a few things that could be red flags inside your group. So, for example, some of the more kind of common things that you might have in your Facebook rules or that you might be documenting for your team or for yourself to really be on the lookout to create that connected, engaged environment that's sort of embracing your values is, you want to create a place that is where people are kind and there's no bullying. So that's fairly obvious when you start to see bullying behavior in the group. What are you or what are your team members going to do about that? Is your policy that they're instantly removed from the group? Is there a warning? How are you going to handle that? And being clear about that with your team is really important. Another rule might be that you want to encourage civility, that you don't condone foul language. Well, what do you do? What does your team members do when foul language appears in the group? How do you handle that? Maybe you also have a rule, which we would highly recommend, is that people can't advertise their own services in the group. So they can't put in links to products that they have for sale. So what happens when somebody does that? How is that communicated? Maybe there's people that are just spamming. They're just commenting on every single post and saying, oh, I can help you with that. DM me. What do you do with those people? What do you do with other people that are breaking the rules? Do you have a process in place where your team can come and speak to you about it if they're unsure? So how do you make it super clear so people can act autonomously and then go, look, that's a clear rule breakage. I know that what I need to do now is remove that post and write an explanation, because often, when you remove the post, it gives you the opportunity to write an explanation to the poster. And I know exactly what I'm going to say to that person because I've been briefed and I know what the policies are of my manager or the person that owns this group. I know exactly what to say. Sometimes it's borderline and they don't know exactly what to say, or whether it does qualify as being spammy or whether it is truly advertising. And so what I encourage there is that you have channels for discussion, a place where people who are managing your group on your behalf can escalate things to you or to someone else who can help them. Now, that might be a Slack channel, and I have set that up for some of my clients where we have a dedicated Slack channel just for the community management. It could be an email address. You might have your own little Facebook group where you and only your Facebook group managers are members, where you guys can share things. And so it's a place where they can escalate issues, they can ask questions, because there are always, always, always unforeseen developments. There are grey lines in communities. We're dealing with people here. And the other thing that I would suggest is, again, if you have a more mature group, you've got other people supporting you, you've got a big group, is to have some regular meetings with those community team members so that they know what's coming, they can ask you questions. And when you've got an empowered team like that, your community becomes more empowered, your group becomes more effective. And you want to be also incredibly equitable with the way you enforce the rules. You need to be consistent. People can't see one person posting an ad.
Absolutely. So important.
And then they get hung up for posting an ad because that's going to alienate somebody. And when one person posts an ad, think of it like that a little snowball rolling off the top of the hill. When people see that it was permitted once, then they're going to want to do it. And suddenly you've got this snowballing issue. So really think about being consistent, being on top of it in your group, and really treating those guidelines that you have and any other unwritten things that you might have with your team really in a sacred way, because that's what's going to make the biggest difference to the group.
I love that. And be willing to reinstate your rules again and again, because people, groups change, group members change, people come, new people arrive, people forget. And, one of the hardest things is when it's like a really good client and they've been a client forever and suddenly they're doing something in the group that you're like, but that consistency is so important. And you'll find that it will be applauded by the others in the group, especially when it comes to the spammy posts, which might be a little on the grey side, like people are just playing on the edges of the rules. I just encourage you to just keep the culture tight in your groups. Okay, so we've got these groups. What happens when you might want to close a group? Firstly, when might you be closing it, and what sort of systems and processes would you want to have in place? So at some point, you might want to close down a group. Now, you might have a pop-up group for a challenge or a course, or if it's a group that's set up to keep people warm until you move them to another group, then you want to go ahead and close the group, or if you're just done with your group. Now, we close groups at the end of a challenge, whether it's a paid challenge or a free challenge or a paid mini course or a free mini course. We will often have a pop-up group and we'll close the group. And we close it because the promise was that whatever it is, the challenge or the course was going to be delivered in that group, and that it was a timed event. It was a 5-day challenge. It was a 7-day workshop. And that's where the support and the ends. And that was the promise. So then the group is archived. We'll even remove trainings and turn off commenting to make it clear that you came in, you received all the things we said you were going to receive, and now it's over and done with. And when you close a group and you archive it, what you can do is you turn off commenting, and so people can still see whatever you choose to leave in there. You can delete whatever you want, but they're no longer able to comment. We also close off groups after our courses. So Michelle and I just wrapped up our Mastermind Experience program, which is a month-long experience of what it's like to be in a mastermind with me and Michelle. Now, that was a $1,000 program, and we promised the participants that they would get to keep the training modules. So we have moved that content to a new online portal along with the handouts and the worksheets. And so people can access that there, but the actual group is closed off and archived. There are other groups that we leave open. For example, once you've done the Reach retreat with us, you join the Reach alumni group, and that group has stayed open for years and years. And every single year we bring in a new group of graduates. Similarly with our mastermind group, right? This is an ongoing group. It doesn't close. As new masterminders join, they join the group. If a masterminder happens to leave, they'll leave the group. Our members group has been in existence from day one. Women who are part of our goals groups, they're our accountability groups. If you're a goals group leader, you have a group. It's an ongoing group, so we don't close it. But I really like the idea of closing groups when their day is done. Whether it's a program that's done with, whether you are done with the group, is to actually close it down. Don't leave it sort of lingering with no activity. It doesn't serve anybody. And so once the group's purpose has been realized, there's no more use. Now, one thing I do want to let you know, something that we did a couple of years ago, Michelle, I think you'll remember this. We had an online summit. We had 5,000 women attend. We built a group of some of those women. I think we had about 1,500 women in that group. And then once the summit was over, we could choose to archive and close that group. But there was so much momentum in the group that we renamed the group, and it has now become what is our free Her Business community for women business owners. So we stopped talking about the summit because that was done and dusted, but we revitalized the group. So that's just kind of an aside, because you might have built a great community, say off the back of a challenge, and you didn't usually have a free group. This is something that you could do with it. That's kind of all I wanted to say about that, I think. about closing the group. Was there anything else that you'd add?
I do think that I want to talk about being strategic with closing groups because here's what happens. And this is more so when you are very deliberately creating a group because you want to lead people into the next thing. So whether it's that you're doing a 7-day challenge, a 30-day challenge, you're doing a free 3-part workshop, if you're using Jeff Walker's product launch formula or some other method of just giving out free content, maybe you're creating a group around a particular idea and you know that your plan is that on this particular date, you are going to open the doors to another offer, be it your course, be it your high ticket coaching program, be it your product that's just landed and is ready to ship, whatever it is, it has a certain date. And if you've listened to some of our other episodes or you're part of some of our other trainings, you'll know we're very big on kind of creating that moment where people can buy from you, that you build up this pent-up demand and then you open the doors on that at a very specific date and time based on this anticipation. And the group is great for creating that anticipation. So then you need to have a decision. Am I going to keep this free group open while my promotion runs? Or am I going to close the group? And when am I going to close the group during the promotion? And there's this idea called the pain of disconnect. And you want to be thinking about that pain of disconnect because if somebody has come into your Facebook group, and let's just say our mastermind experience is a great example. They came in, they got 30 days of fantastic experience masterminding with us. Now, that was a paid program and the group was given as a bonus to people to join and experience all the benefits of getting daily Facebook support from Suzi and myself. When we then opened the doors on our mastermind, we created a certain date when that offer would close. And that date was deliberately coincided with the date that the mastermind experience group closed. Now, why would we do that? It's because people are starting to feel that pain of disconnect. While ever the group's open and they're getting what they need there, they're less likely to move on to the next thing that they have to pay for because there's friction in that. So think about the closure of your group as it relates to the timing of your offer of the thing you want to offer them next. Because if you think about it and somebody's getting all they need here in your group, why would they move on to the next thing? So closing the group at a very strategic time can often be a really big lever in helping the conversion rates of the next thing that you want people to do. And there's some really good language that you can use there because people can get a little bit upset, right? And as they're getting upset, like, can't you keep this group open? You're going to feel some tension around that. But that tension is kind of healthy tension. And it's the tension people are feeling, that pain of disconnect. And now they've got two things they can do with that. They can go, right, well, I'll just figure this out on my own, or they can take up the offer of the thing that you're offering next. And what I encourage my clients to say and what we say in our groups is, look, we've given you absolutely everything we can here in this XYZ group. And now we're going to move our efforts and put all of our effort into this other XYZ group, which is the thing that you're wanting to make the offer for. And so we really won't have the team to be keeping this group active and facilitating this group. So that's really good language. It explains why you are needing to close the group, archive the group. And especially if people have paid for whatever service you delivered in that group, archiving is the way to go. Because the great thing about an archive, when you archive the group, people can no longer join the group. They can no longer comment or like or interact with the group using Facebook's interaction sort of features. But they can still see the group. The group is still available to them as long as they're a member and you don't remove them from the group. So they can go back and click on that old link where you shared that video, or they can go and read that comment that somebody made on their post that was very helpful later. So it helps to diminish people feeling super cranky with you while still creating that pain of disconnect where they're thinking, right, I can't get what I need here. I really have loved this person's mentorship, or I've really loved this community. I do want to continue, so I will take up that offer. So just being super strategic about when that closure is, if you're going to close a group. And if you're thinking, hey, I hadn't thought about closing my group, entertain the idea of maybe I do need to close this group rather than continuing it. Not always, but sometimes that makes sense.
And if you are going to do that, how could you be strategic about it? How could you use it as an opportunity to have an offer ready for people to move across to? Very, very good. The final piece of the puzzle we want to give you here in today's episode is anything different or extra that you might do in a paid group versus a free group. Now, one of those systems is for how you let people into the group. The thing with a paid group is you only want people in there who should be in the group. So you definitely want to use that ask questions function that we mentioned earlier. Are you a member of the Her Business Network? Did you purchase my XYZ training? What email address did you use? Now, sometimes people's names in Facebook are different. Their name in Facebook is different from the name that they registered with. And so you want to have a process to that, right? So Mary Smith might be using her maiden name, but she registered with a different last name, for example. Or some people have sort of funky, quirky names in Facebook. So you just want to make sure you've got the right people there. We have a system. Once we have asked the questions, copied the question information across that's relevant, and let people in, we have a system that a team member writes a welcome post and deliberately calls out the person to say hello. And in our instance, we'll also then point them to the introduce yourself post, which I mentioned earlier, which has instructions on how to make yourself known in the group. So people, belong to a lot of groups these days. So you want to make it clear what you want them to do and what's okay to do and what's not okay to do. And so we let them in, we welcome them, then they are tagged in our database. So part of the process of letting someone into the group, into a paid group, is that we will then tag them in the system, because if someone has paid for membership and maybe 7 days later they haven't joined our members group, that for us is a flag, because there's so much value inside the group that we want to make sure they get in there. So if we find 7 days later, we can run a search in our database and say, oh, so-and-so joined membership, but they're not yet in the group, then we can pick up the phone to them, we can email them, and that is a system. So that happens every single time. The other thing that we do in our paid groups is we reconcile our members group every month, and we remove anyone who might have cancelled, and we'll re-invite anyone who has not yet joined but should be in that group. So there are a few key systems and processes that you want in place. Quite a few, actually, almost an hour's worth of systems and processes that you want in place in your Facebook groups. Now, you can see our knowledge in this area runs very, very deep. And we hope by having categorized it into these 4 phases, you can work through them for your own groups. Those phases, once again, are the prep or strategy phase. Why am I doing this? Do I even need a group? The pre-launch phase, what are all the pieces that I need to have in place before I let people into the group? The live phase, what's happening? The group is now live, what's happening in the group? And then the closing or archiving phase, which can actually be, as Michelle outlined, a very strategic and key part of any group life cycle, whether it's a free group or a paid group, is knowing when do I shut it down and what is the next step for people. So that is what we've got for you today as far as Facebook groups and the essential systems and processes for success. We mentioned a few things. I'm going to give you in a moment where you can find those extra resources. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, the lovely Michelle Pascoe from Oops. She is a specialist in customer service. And she said this about episode 188, which that episode has actually had a lot of love. It was called How to Brief a Graphic Designer. And Michelle just gave us a general piece of love. She said, I loved this podcast, excellent tips and ideas. And that was episode 188. So Michelle, thank you for being a regular listener. Michelle is one of over 100 5-star reviews that we have. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love it if you would leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, as I said, we mentioned several resources and episodes on today's show, and we've made it really easy for you to get access to those goodies. We're up to episode 193, so it's always good to have a curated list of the key things you want. And these resources are all about Facebook groups. So you'll find those resources over at herbusiness.com/group success. herbusiness.com/group success. Michelle, what do we have coming up in the next episode?
Suzi, episode 194 is all about competitions. And we have really not touched too much on this topic. So I'm excited. And, 194 episodes in, we've touched on a lot of topics. So I'm quite keen to dig into this one a little deeper. And we're going to be looking at competitions in a few different ways. Obviously, how you can use competitions as a lead generation activity to get more people coming into your world. Also, how you can use competitions to incentivize your existing customers to share your great offer with their networks. And then also the way competitions can work to actually incentivize people to take actions that lead to customer success. And we'll be talking about why creating more customer success is going to be such a powerful tool in your business in that next episode. So if you haven't been thinking about a competition, check out this episode, because I think it could be interesting and show you there's a lot more scope than perhaps you thought. And if you are using competitions, definitely check this out as well, because we've got a few interesting angles on this that we think will help you with getting more results, getting more traction with the competitions you are running.
Very good. That's coming up in the next episode. So be sure to subscribe to the show if you don't already subscribe, so that episode drops into your app as soon as it's available. Michelle, anything you want to say before we go?
Look, we shared a ton of systems and processes with you today. And I do think this is one of those episodes maybe to come back and replay a few times, but pick at least one or two key processes that you're not doing now that you can say, look, I'm just going to focus on these. And then when you get that up and running, you can pick a couple more. So you can move through this incrementally as you go. So start by just picking one or two things you'll do right now.
Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Content Sells podcast. Bye for now.